Okay, so in example 2, we're going to create our own contingencies table, which is more similar to how your homework is in My Open Math. And in example 2, it says, in another survey, participants were asked if they regularly floss and if they regularly eat breakfast. I'm going to stop reading there because that alone tells me the two things I'm comparing, right? Flossing and eating breakfast. So you decide what you want to put in your columns and what you want to put in your rows. It does not matter. So I'm going to go ahead and put floss in my first column. I don't floss, so no floss, however you want to say it, and then a total. And then here is breakfast, no breakfast. And then once again, you have a total as well. Okay. Now I have a way to organize all this information they're going to give me. It says among 300 people who participated in this study. All right, so that means I know 300 people were surveyed. So that's going to go in my grand total. 105 regularly floss. So here's my floss and 105 total floss. 210 eat breakfast. So I'm going to look in my breakfast row and my total there is 210. And then it says 90 do both. Okay, so I'm going to look for where they floss and breakfast combine, or the cell that combines both of them, which would be right here. So that's where I would put 90. Now we have enough information to fill out the rest of the table. So if I go ahead and if I want to find no floss and they eat breakfast, well, that would be my total minus the other piece, the 90. So that's why I get 120. Well, I know my floss column has to add up to 105. So no breakfast and flossing has to be 105 minus the 90, which is 15. So this is kind of similar to your Venn diagrams. Well, I can figure out this piece because it's 300 minus the 105, which is 195. And then I can figure out this piece because that's 195 minus the 120, which is 75. And then you can figure out the last one by either dealing with the column or the row. They should both give you the same value, okay? And so if I do 300 minus 210, I'll get 90, or if I do 15 plus 75, I get 90. And they didn't ask us any specific questions. It just wanted to create a contingency table. All right, now for example 3, we're going to compare using this information versus a contingency table and now put it into a Venn diagram and see the difference between the two ways to organize your data. Well, we're talking about flossing and eating breakfast. Okay, well, they told us that 90 did both. We also know, and again, just scrolling up to the data up here, 105 floss. Well, that would be 105 minus the 90. And so we get 15 just floss. We also know, going back up here, 210 like breakfast, but we're 90 already accounted for. And so that's why we get 120. Well, if I add 15 plus 90 plus 120, I'm not going to get the 300 I surveyed. So remember, we create a universe. And that means there will be 75 people don't do either because I need to get to 300. Now, if I look at this data, and compare it to my contingency table, I have the same values, okay? So I can see that 90 do both. I can also see 90 do both right here. I can see 15 floss, but they don't eat breakfast. Well, that's the same right here. And then I can see 120 eat breakfast, but they don't floss. Again, same information right here. The only thing that's different between these two ways to organize your data is there is something special about a contingency table because it really lays out all the combinations. So, for example, like, you know, of course, we could add 15 plus 90 and see that 105 floss. Easy arithmetic. But sometimes it's nice where it's just laid out for you directly. And so when we go down here, it says for variables with only two categories, either you have the characteristic or you don't. Venn diagrams and contingency tables give basically the same information. Same deal I just said. The contingency table, however, allows us to add the subtotals for different categories and the grand total, which is nice. And it allows us to illustrate different possibilities, where a Venn diagram is very binary. It's like yes or no. But they all give you the same information, okay? All right, so I'm going to see you for our next video, which is our last video for 4.1.